Okay, welcome to the August meeting of the Governance Committee of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. This meeting is being recorded and will be transcribed as required. Before I ask that you state your name before commenting. At this time, I'll ask Nikita to indicate who is on this call.
Okay, so far I have all of Bfsa staff, the director, Chair Olson, Director Floss, Interim Vice Chair Jeanette Jurasek, as well as Delane O'Dowd from the Comptroller's Office. Here said, I think Barbara Miller-Williams from the Comptroller's Office, Elisa Bryce, and a Robert Drilling. Those are all the I have on the line.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Our objective today is to review the various policies which govern the BFSA and to consider recommending approval of such policies to the full board. We will also review the annual procurement report and prompt payment report, and will consider a recommendation that these two items also be approved by the full board. Our final item is to review the format of the annual board self-evaluation and approve the submission of this item to each director to complete. First, I'll take the roll call. Chair Olson, you're Secretary Arthur excused. Director Jurasek present. Director Floss present. He took it for you. The first item of business is to approve the minutes of the committee meeting held on December 12th, 2019. The draft minutes are located under tab 1 of your board book. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve from Jeanette.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any additions, deletions to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. No opposed. We will now advance the agenda to review the BFSA's various policies, procedures, and reports, and will consider recommending approval of these items by the full board. The relevant documents are located under tab 1 of your board book. Jeanette will review these items with us.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple high-level comments just to pinpoint to you where changes have been made from last year. And since it's the same members on the governance committee, I'm not going to belabor the process with too many comments. The first is our Code of Ethics, which of course governs all the ethical processes and procedures that board members as well as BFSA staff are required to follow. I do want to remind everybody that annually the certification regarding your compliance with this policy is required. It's not required of the elected officials. It is required of the state-appointed officials on the board. Very few comments or changes on this one. I can point you to page 5 regarding the definition of a financial interest. A modification was made to subparagraph 3, in which a liability or debt to a person or business in excess of $10,000 is the new limitation to define whether or not such debt is a disclosable item in terms of this policy. And that is consistent with what was seen in the New York State Public Officers Law. The second change is on page A5 in the appendices, and it also pertains to a financial interest, and it's a change in compliance with the New York State Public Officers Law, and it changes the financial interest for a legislative employee. It doesn't necessarily impact us specifically, in which an interest is had or whether such interest is over or under $1,000, which is lowered from the $5,000 threshold that was originally provided. Those are the two changes in the Code of Ethics. We did review Public Officers Law. We did review additional laws to ensure that the policy is in fact compliant with what literature and what any changes that were made since last year when this was reviewed and approved by the full board. The mission statement has no changes to it, but I did want to revisit the mission statement as we do annually. It is, the mission statement reads, created by the State of New York as a public benefit corporation, it is the mission of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority to provide financial oversight over the budget, financial plans, and capital plans of the City of Buffalo and its covered organizations. BFSA shall undertake such actions as afforded to it under its enabling legislation as necessary to assure the financial stability of the city and its covered organizations, to preserve the confidence of the investors and bond rating agencies, to uphold essential services to residents, to maintain affordable property taxes, and to protect the economy of both the region and the state as a whole. I'm asking that this be reaffirmed. I do also want to make a comment that annually a distribution letter is sent to the covered organizations with our items to be provided to the BFSA routinely to assist us in conducting our job, as well as for clarity in terms of what we're looking for, and I would include a copy of this mission statement with that letter also. The next item is the investment guidelines. There have been no changes to the investment guidelines from last year. I have no further comments on that. There are no changes to the property disposal guidelines. As a reminder, we do not, we are prohibited from any capital type of transactions. Our personal property is limited to what we use to operate the business. Moving to the use of discretionary funds policy, there was a change made to this. This change relates to meals reimbursed for any travel that is conducted by BFSA staff or BFSA directors. Meals for such travel purposes are reimbursed based on the IRS guidelines and reimbursement policy, which was lowered from a minor change, $51 a day last year to $50, and the breakout limitations for breakfast, lunch, and dinner are now consistent with the IRS guidelines. There is no change to the whistleblower policy. There's no change to our lobbying contact policy. As a reminder, our lobbying contact officer is the controller. Any instances of lobbying shall be reported to her promptly for proper record keeping. There are no changes to the procurement report. That brings us to our report on procurement contracts for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. This particular report summarizes all those contracts that are outstanding with the authority in excess of $5,000 or more that were expensed on the cash basis during the year ended June 30th, 2020. These procurement contracts and vendors are consistent with what was reported in the prior year. This brings us to the prompt payment policy statement, which is unchanged. Payment shall be made within 30 calendar days, excluding legal holidays, after the receipt of an acceptable invoice. There is a required prompt payment report annually where we would report to you any instances of noncompliance with that policy, as well as any interest charges or late charges that the BFSA incurred during the year and the reasons for such late payments. There was one new contract entered into in excess of $5,000 during the year. that fell under the requirements of this reporting, and there were no late payments made to this particular vendor as reported on this report. As a side comment, the BFSA did not incur any late charges or interest payments for any invoices during the year, including those under the $5,000 threshold. I kind of went through those quickly. Are there any comments or questions on any of these? Thank you. They're consistent with what you've seen in past years. We've painstakingly gone through the process of updating these very carefully over the last year. So the fact that there are very few changes is just a reflection of the work that's gone into those over the past years.
Thank you very much. Given the unique circumstances that we've been operating under, to say the least, I would reemphasize a point that has been made in the past, which is we have an opinion from counsel that, in fact, board members are free to lobby. This is particularly important now because we have requested the legislature to consider certain legislation, and that's fully consistent with our role and obligations under the Act. Any other questions or comments? Okay. I request a vote to recommend the approval of the policies and the reports that have just been reviewed by the full board, including the Code of Ethics, Mission Statement, Investment Guidelines, Property Disposal Guidelines, Use of Discretionary Funds Policy, Whistleblower Policy, Lobbying Policy, Procurement Guidelines, Annual Procurement Report, Prompt Payment Policy, and the Annual Prompt Payment Report. Is there a motion?
Councilmember Wyatt?
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, hearing none. Move on to our next item of business, which is to review the annual board self-evaluation and recommended submission to each director for completion. Copy of the policy guidance from the authority's budget office has been included in tab 1. Format is consistent with what has been used by BFSA over the last several years. May I have a motion to approve the distribution of the annual board of directors evaluation to each director for completion? Is there a second?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded from Jeanette.
Okay, thank you, Jeanette. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye? Yeah, go ahead.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask how we're going to get it all back to everybody.
This is Jeanette Robe. What we're going to be doing is after this meeting, you're going to be receiving in the mail a copy of the page for the Code of Ethics for you to sign and return, and you'll also get a manual copy of the board evaluation with 2 envelopes, and the 2 envelopes are self-stamped envelopes are required because the evaluation process is to be conducted confidentially. So in a nutshell, you'll be getting an item at home for you to complete and mail back to us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. Okay, passes. Is there any other new business to address? Seems like we should have a policy on policies. Hearing none, this concludes the meeting of the Governance Committee of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Or a second?
Seconded from Jeanette.
Thank you, Jeanette. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.